My name is Will. Here with Craig, who's waiting for the bathroom now. And we're both developers by trade. Myself, C# developer. I've since moved on to the business side. I've been focused in capital markets. We've worked together in kind of future thinking, innovation, 5 years, 10 years out technology for a large consulting company. And what we've done since is realize that as we progress in our careers and want to start our own businesses, we have this need to kind of churn real quick demos out, get real quick alphas out to people, so that people can get their hands on the ideas that we're thinking of. And so in order to do this, we built out a framework on Python and Django that allows us to turn around an alpha in about 2 weeks. So from ideation to actually being able to put something up on the web and being able to get hands on the product takes a grand total of 2 weeks. And what we've done is first we started with our own projects. We started a hotwire for restaurants that unfortunately once we got kind of launched in an alpha state, we sat down with some people and realized that just the human capital of getting restaurants on board with the idea of kind of a price fixed menu and having people involved in this kind of hot wire type exchange, the marketplace was too fragmented and it just took too much to get each individual restaurant on board.
So to jump in right there, essentially what we started was we knew some people kind of at Hotwire in the space, and we started talking to them and they're like, okay, well show me when you have something. It's like, well, but we have the idea, and it's like that's an extra step. So we started down the process of essentially building, and what we found, after 2 weeks, we had something that we could get in front of them and basically say, this is good, this makes sense. How do you scale to a 300-person sales force, which we didn't have the answer for at the time.
So we tabled it. Next idea, registrystop.com. It's live, it's up on the web, it's available. So what registrystop.com allows you to do is when you're getting married, as Craig did, and as I will one day, I promise. You can go onto registrystop.com, and if you're registered at Williams-Sonoma, if you're registered at Crate & Barrel, wherever you're registered, you have the ability to aggregate all that data in one place, and have the ability to give your guests now the opportunity to buy that at the cheapest price, no matter where it's listed. So if it's on Amazon.com, if it's on Walmart.com, your guests can go to this site and buy the object that you registered for direct from registrystop.com. Since then, what we've done is launched a couple other alphas. I have one right now targeting capital markets that I've had the opportunity to present to people. And again, it's this 2-week turnaround that we're focused on in terms of being able to give people alphas very quickly, get our idea out in front of people, get user feedback, and then be able to iterate on that in a quick fashion. So what we wanted to do is productize that framework and be able to give it to people who have ideas. So now what we've done is we've started out kind of looking for a couple projects to focus on. We want to create a consulting company whereby people who have startup ideas can come to us, say, sit down with myself, I'm the product guy, I'm going to focus on making sure that you focus on your minimal viable idea and turn it into something palpable that you can put in front of your users. Craig and the development team then take that and actually develop it, and after 2 weeks what you have is an actual product that you can sit down with your users, with the VC, and market.
Awesome.
Question?
What do you guys do on top of Django? What's the framework?
It's essentially from wedding registries to restaurants to capital markets. When we started doing this over and over, because we come from a development background,
right,
we found we had so much reusable stuff that it was kind of plug and play. So the framework's a lot of what do you need in this case, and it's a lot of pulling from kind of shared knowledge, but shared framework, shared code under the covers, and a lot of different places kind of that it's really loose in a lot of ways. What we found, whether it's restaurants, weddings, to capital markets, which are all very, very different industries, it seems to make sense as soon as you put it onto the web.
And just so everybody knows, if you want to build a spaceship, this isn't the product for you. If you want to build a transactional system that you need user authentication, you need different type of user roles, this is really our bread and butter, and that's what we've been able to turn around in this fast iteration curve.
Yeah.
So let me get this straight. So you guys are able to take it from concept to an alpha in how long again?
It's a 2-week period.
It's a 2-week period.
Yeah. So
okay.
sorry.
So is it as I know you mentioned that it's like transactional, so that would be e-commerce and that sort of arena. Is that what you guys would build up to? Or?
In general, but again, we have this kind of this data model and framework where we can pull pieces. So
Right.
registrystop.com does have community elements to it. So
I
if
see.
we need a community site, we have those elements already baked into the product. It's just a matter of pulling them in to whatever idea that you have.
What's the name of your product?
We have not named it yet. This is again to the idea kick point. We realized this when we were building out the capital markets framework, and we said, wait a minute, we've done wedding registries, we've done restaurants, now we're doing capital markets, and it's taking 2 weeks.
Will this be open source?
At some point. But for the time being, I think what we found is that there's a bit of secret sauce in kind of how we're actually able to move our data model around, move the different pieces of the framework around, and we want to be able to exploit that until we're rich.
So as I understand it, this is really more targeted at the non-technical user as opposed to the technical user that's going to grab some, open source software and go and manipulate it. This is more like for the person, like let's say you have an idea, but you don't know how to code, you don't know how to like actually turn it into something real. This is more like what something like that would use. They would work with you guys to develop it.
Exactly. So if you're non-technical, or if you're technical like me, and as you can see, I have a day job, and you don't have the time to really sit down and be able to spend the ample amount of time that you need to properly architect and build out a product, which are two very different processes and two things that take a lot of time to invest in. I had the time to look at product. I didn't have the time to properly architect my data model, properly make sure that I was building a sustainable ecosystem for my application. And that's where this framework really comes in. Lauren?
Yeah, I was thinking, I don't know what the difference really is between a website and an app, but maybe a lot of people just want an app of something, if that could be like a specific sector or offering. I don't know if that's different.
Certainly. I mean, so registrystop.com does have a mobile application that allows you to scan barcodes of items and add it to your registry. That's
Yeah.
something that we can pull into the framework if necessary. But again, the focus here is, and the sites that we build are you can pull up on an iPhone. And so in
Right,
terms
but I
of
mean, some people might just want to develop an app.
in terms of something natively on a PC.
Like that's all they might just be
Oh.
interested in, like app development.
Right,
That's
so-
what you could do that for them, or
Right, like on a phone. Right now, that's not kind of our bread and butter, but we certainly can expand to that. And I think you're
Okay.
right. As the mobile space grows, it's something that we definitely have to look at.
And I think it's something we're open. I mean, so what we found is basically if we're just doing this on our own, that this makes a lot of sense. And this repeatability, this executing on the early stage process. It wasn't hey, we think we can do this a lot of times. It was we found ourselves doing it a lot of times, over and over and over. And I mean, I think we're open to kind of whether it's the app or a website, various areas, exploring it. But it's kind of does it already fit? Because we don't want to go down a whole path of hey, we're not looking to just build companies for people. It's this reasonable process that makes a lot of sense over and over.
So it seems like you guys are talking about like the structure and the architecture of how this thing actually functions. So if you have an idea, you can make it function, right? What about the design aspect of it? So would you guys also be incorporating the way this thing looks? Because that kind of makes, for certain products, although functionality is key, it needs to look better than its competitors. For example, Facebook looked better than MySpace when it first came out, but had the same thing, and that's why it took off.
Certainly. So, and to your point, sometimes it matters, sometimes it doesn't. Right. So that's something we can plug into this framework, whereby if design really matters, the wedding space, design matters, right? You want to get something pretty in front of people. So we have the ability to get a nice design. We have designers that we can reach out to. We have people who do CSS. For the capital markets project, on the other hand, I originally built it out in Rails, and it was just Rails scaffolding. For those of you who know what Rails looks like, it's the ugliest thing you've ever seen. I couldn't put that in front of people. I didn't need a fully designed site, but I needed something in between. And that's where this framework was perfect, because I was just able to kind of plug and play, do some simple CSS, and get something out there.
Is it scalable once you've developed that, and then you can then add from that, or do you have to like begin the process again once you start
So-
selling or pitching your idea with the model that you guys present over a 2-week process?
So the really nice thing was on the registry side, we've got thousands and thousands of users, and we're still growing that as a product, and it's still scaling well on that baseline. So for us, it was great to pull from a lot of those pieces, and we could scale to thousands, potentially millions of users pretty easily. So scalability, luckily, because we've done that piece early on, really isn't a concern. Whereas initially, when we build from the ground up, you worry about it quite a bit because you're reinventing the wheel.
And you know, it's one of those things where if you get to be Twitter and you're worried about the upper limit of an int on and then a long and then everything else as it goes along, you got good problems. But in terms of being able to scale through alpha, beta, and launch, we certainly can.
Have you guys had anybody go through the full stage where they're at the VC level and they're presenting what you guys have built for them, or?
So right now,
Or
again,
do you guys have contacts with VCs to push these? Or?
we do have contacts with VCs. Right now, really what we want to focus on is getting people to that alpha stage. We don't want to necessarily be an incubator or bring people along in that process. But what we are open to is if you need somebody to sit down and talk tech with a VC, we're certainly happy to stand in as kind of an outsourced CTO technology type space where, you know, at some point a VC is going to want to talk to you and be able to say, hey, listen, how do you execute? How do you pull that off? We can certainly sit in and open kind of that door.
Unfortunately, we got to move on from there because that is time. But if you like this idea, you want to follow up with it, we're going to have it on video tomorrow, and there'll be a way to do all that. So thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.